l'équité dans le sport, bien entendu, et aussi dans les pays où c'est un peu difficile entre l'homme et la femme. The gender equity. This is the next theme. How can we improve locally or worldwide this equity? To answer to these questions, pour répondre à cette question, nous avons la chance d'avoir avec nous le président de la Ligue des droits de l'homme en Tunisie et de la femme, bien sûr, qui est avec nous. Et c'est un vrai plaisir puisqu'il est membre du quartet qui a reçu le prix Nobel de la paix pour 2015. Je vous demande d'accueillir M. Abdel Sattaf Ben Moussa. Merci. Venez me rejoindre. Venez me rejoindre. C'est un honneur une nouvelle fois de vous accueillir. Nous allons parler français, donc prenez les écouteurs. Take the headsets to have the answers. Venez, je vais vous laisser aller au pupitre et je vais vous poser quelques questions, s'il vous plaît, Monsieur Ben Moussa. Voilà, de façon à ce que vous puissiez un peu nous parler de l'expérience que vous avez eue justement avec le quartet et nous dire quel a été le rôle de la femme tunisienne justement pendant cette période difficile.
Enfin, merci beaucoup et je suis honoré d'assister dans ce chemin vers l'équité des genres dans le sport. C'est plutôt une marche vers l'équité en tant qu'homme, donc je suis honoré d'être là avec vous. Vous savez, en Tunisie, le projet moderniste entrepris depuis l'indépendance, en 1956, a inscrit l'idée d'un progressisme tunisien basé sur la promotion de la femme en tant qu'élément essentiel de l'identité nationale. Le premier pilier de ce projet moderniste fut le code de statut personnel qui a été en 1957. C'est un code moderniste. Le seul pays arabe où il n'y a pas de bigamie, c'est la Tunisie. Le divorce encore devant le tribunal. Le deuxième pilier, c'est l'éducation et la participation publique des femmes. L'éducation, l'enseignement a été depuis 1956 mixte et obligatoire. Donc mixte, c'est important, et obligatoire aussi pour les hommes et les femmes. Et aussi l'intégration dans le marché du travail. Ça, c'était vraiment très important pour la promotion de la femme en Tunisie. Et ça explique le rôle important joué par la femme dans le processus de transition démocratique. C'est-à-dire, tout d'abord, lors de l'Assemblée nationale constituante, qui a été élue le 23 octobre 2011, il y avait une tentative de certaines formes rétrogrades de faire de la femme le complément de l'homme dans la famille. Alors, les femmes ont organisé une marche le 13 août, jour de commémoration de la femme, le 13 août 2012. On avait participé à cette marche et avec l'aide de la société civile et aussi l'aide du dialogue national, cet article a été retiré. Et trois jours après seulement, un décret-loi levant les réserves, le 16 août 2012, les réserves sur la CEDEAO a été adopté. La CEDEAO, c'est très important. Donc la Tunisie a adhéré à la CEDEAO et a levé les réserves à la CEDEAO. Le 13 août aussi, 2013, après les assassinats, les femmes ont organisé une manifestation devant l'Assemblée nationale constituante demandant une constitution démocratique. Et heureusement, avec le pouvoir, avec le militantisme des femmes et de la société civile en général et du dialogue national, la Constitution prévoit dans son article 46 la préservation des acquis de la femme et demande à l'État de les améliorer, à l'État d'œuvrer pour l'égalité des chances, réaliser la parité dans les conseils élus, soit le Parlement, soit les conseils municipaux. Et l'article aussi 21 proclame l'égalité entre les citoyens et citoyennes dans leurs droits et leurs devoirs. Les lois, le décret électoral de 2011 de l'Assemblée nationale constituante ou la loi concernant l'élection du Parlement avait inscrit, c'est-à-dire adopté la parité. Les listes électorales doivent être moitié femmes ou moitié hommes, mais malheureusement, en pratique, les femmes ne sont pas devenues la moitié du Parlement, soit dans l'Assemblée nationale constituante, soit dans le Parlement. Pourquoi? Parce que les partis politiques qui ont présenté des élections ont mis à la tête des élections la plupart, 93% des hommes, 7% seulement des femmes. Donc ça revient, ici c'est une question de mentalité, question qu'il faut changer. Ce n'est pas la loi qui change, c'est la pratique, c'est la mentalité. Et aussi les premiers gouvernements, le nombre de femmes qui étaient responsables dans les ministères ont été réduits. Il y avait deux ou trois femmes. Heureusement, dans ce gouvernement, l'actuel gouvernement, il y a 9 parmi les ministres, femmes et secrétaires d'État. Donc, le rôle des femmes a été très important. Il continue ce rôle. Nous avons d'organisations féminines très militantes dans la société civile. Le problème de ces organisations, c'est qu'elles se concentrent dans les grandes villes. Je ne sais pas, presque partout dans le monde. C'est-à-dire, elles n'ont pas d'action entreprise dans les zones rurales, où la discrimination persiste encore. Donc, nous avons encore un long chemin concernant l'égalité entre hommes et femmes. Peut-être je vais parler de ça concernant le sport.
Exactement. Donc c'est un peu l'héritage. Après les indépendances au Maghreb, vous avez été précurseur grâce aussi à Abi Bourguiba et tout ce qui a été fait justement pour la femme. Vous le disiez, l'accès à l'éducation, extrêmement important. Et c'est justement pour parler d'avenir. Et c'est grâce à ça que,
oui,
en ayant eu cet accès-là, eh bien, les femmes ont une perspective en Tunisie peut-être extrêmement intéressante.
Oui, je vous donne, excusez-moi, je vous donne des statistiques. Maintenant, le nombre de femmes dans l'enseignement, c'est 49,5%. Le nombre de personnels de femmes dans la santé, c'est 40%. Ça, mais dans le sport, ça reste encore faible.
Ce n'est pas encore le cas.
24%.
Donc, et ça va se développer. Et vous le dites, en ville, c'est en train de le faire. Dans les zones rurales, il y a aussi cet accès à l'éducation et justement au sport qui n'est peut-être pas si évident.
Concernant le sport?
Oui.
Concernant le sport, bien sûr, la Tunisie, sur le plan de la loi et sur le plan de transformation de sa législation, elle a adhéré à la CEDAW, où elle prévoit l'équité dans le domaine du sport. Elle a aussi ratifié la déclaration de Brighton. Donc, il y a une volonté d'assurer ou d'améliorer ou d'encourager la parité dans le domaine du genre du sport. Mais, si vous voulez, c'est la deuxième question, ça, non?
Oui, tout à fait.
Oui.
Tout à fait.
Mais les obstacles sévissent. Pourquoi? Tout d'abord, la CEDAW oblige les États qui ont ratifié cette convention à fournir les équipements sportifs, à fournir les lieux où les deux sexes peuvent pratiquer le sport et à fournir le financement aussi. Malheureusement, à l'époque de l'indépendance, le sport était obligatoire dans les écoles primaires. Et par la suite, a disparu à une certaine époque, à l'époque de Ben Ali et même avant. Donc maintenant, il y a, au mois d'août 2015, il y a une convention qui a été signée entre le ministère de l'Éducation, le ministère du Sport et le ministère des Affaires sociales pour rendre le sport obligatoire dès l'école primaire. Ça, c'est très important tout d'abord. Il y a aussi la question des équipements. Les équipements sportifs, il n'y a pas beaucoup d'équipements. Il y a une discrimination en faveur des hommes. Je cite une joueuse de l'équipe de rugby. Vous savez, la Tunisie, c'est le seul pays arabe où il y a une équipe de rugby et qui a été sacrée championne d'Afrique en 2012 et troisième en 2015. Mais malheureusement, elle est rentrée à l'aéroport, aucune personnalité, aucune personne ne les a accueillis. une de ces joueuses a dit qu'elle est issue de Kairouan. La plupart des membres de cette équipe nationale sont issus des régions défavorisées. Elle avait dit, à Kairouan, aucune femme ne peut courir dans la rue, ne peut pratiquer le sport. Le Coran, c'est une grande ville. Que dire des autres villes ou dans les régions rurales? Donc, il n'y a pas d'équipement sportif. Alors que une recommandation du Comité international, olympique international oblige les États à fournir des lieux où les filles peuvent pratiquer le sport. Donc, je crois que la responsabilité, tout d'abord, incombe au gouvernement. Il y a une certaine conscience, mais dans la pratique, il n'y a rien. Il y a aussi le financement. Le financement, les joueuses de l'équipe de cadets de football, 2 joueuses ont été sacrées championnes l'année dernière ici à Monaco, et 2 joueuses avaient pris le trophée de la princesse Charlène. Ces joueuses disent que le sport ne nourrit pas. C'est-à-dire, elles sont bachelières, elles n'ont pas de travail, donc il faut les encourager. Donc, la première responsabilité incombe au gouvernement tout d'abord. La deuxième responsabilité, comme je l'ai dit, incombe à la société civile. La société civile doit œuvrer, doit mener des campagnes de sensibilisation contre l'intérêt du sport, à l'intérêt des effets importants du sport sur la santé, sur le développement, sur la promotion de la femme. Et la société civile doit agir dans les régions rurales. Notons bien que cette question-là n'est pas la responsabilité seulement des associations féminines. Elle doit être la responsabilité de toutes les associations et essentiellement des associations généralisées, comme la Ligue tunisienne des droits de l'homme maintenant. Par exemple, pour la parité, le comité directeur maintenant, il est composé de 25 membres, dont 9 femmes. C'est déjà en avance vers les élections prochaines, la parité. La troisième responsabilité incombe aux équipes. Malheureusement, les grandes équipes qui ont beaucoup d'argent et qui avaient les grands clubs qui avaient d'argent et qui avaient des équipes féminines de handball, de basketball, ils ont dissous ces équipes depuis des années. Pourquoi? Parce que ça ne rapporte pas d'argent. Malheureusement, heureusement maintenant, il y a un grand club qui a réinstauré une équipe féminine de handball.
C'est en train de repartir.
Oui, ça, justement. Grâce à la société civile, on a organisé des congrès sur ça. Je crois aussi qu'il y a une responsabilité des athlètes. Les athlètes, vraiment, on a beaucoup d'athlètes. Maintenant, il y a un entraîneur de l'équipe nationale des Émirats, une Tunisienne. Habib El-Ghribi était hier championne, elle a été ambassadrice du sport, maintenant championne de sport. Donc, ça incombe à ces athlètes de faire des tournées, d'organiser des campagnes de sensibilisation, de montrer comment le sport peut amener à l'émancipation de la femme. Et je crois que aussi la responsabilité incombe aussi aux femmes elles-mêmes. Je crois avec l'éducation, avec tout ça, ça incombe aux femmes. Et je crois que les femmes, tous les acteurs, essentiellement la femme, doivent faire de la femme un pouvoir de dire non à toute discrimination, de dire non avec une voix de l'aigu le plus strident aux vagues le plus tonnant. C'est notre responsabilité.
Merci beaucoup. Merci, Monsieur Ben Moussa. Merci pour ce témoignage aujourd'hui. Et encore une fois, merci d'être avec nous. C'est un honneur. Merci. Je vais tout de suite repasser la parole à Charmaine. Charmaine, please, if you want to start your panel. I won't be far, but I would love to listen to this one. I love it.
Yes, thank you very much, Mark. And thank you once again to our keynote speaker, Mr. Ben Moussa. Very wonderful words and about education. And I really look forward to the 3 women who are going to join me today to speak a little bit more from their personal insights, from their experiences in policy and in implementation. And you're going to hear a real inspiring story from one young athlete. And also, as we do with every panel at the end, you're also going to hear from a peace and sport champion about her insights and her intervention from what she's learned from the panel, as well as her own inspiration as well, and some of the issues that she deals with as a woman in sport and as we deal with gender equity around the world from different vantage points. So without further ado, I'd like to invite my panelists to come and join me. First, we have Styliani Crony, that wonderful music again. She is the president of the NGO Women's Sport International, and she is a professor at Hedmonds University of Applied Sciences. Welcome, please have a seat, this second seat. And she's also from Greece, like Fanny, our other speaker we had earlier. Second, please welcome Maria Tourpakai. She's the founder of her own foundation. She is an athlete in squash, and she's a champion for peace. Please, welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining us. And third, we have Maria Rutanen from Finland, of course. She's the director, Dignity and Equality within the Directorate General Secretary of Democracy for the Council of Europe. Welcome, Marjan. Thank you very much for joining us as well. And as you see, we have one empty seat here with us, but that will be filled later by our champion. And we did have one member of our panel who was not able to join us for various circumstances, but I really want to rev this session up. Rev it up with a video we're going to see in just a minute. But the reason why I said that is because I know a lot of these panels, and we've all been to a lot of women in sport panels before and conferences and had a chance to share our story. But as President Joël Bouzou said earlier, we want to leave here with concrete information, with concrete advice that you can go back to your organizations with, that you can help promote, you can really help us to shape and tell the story of what we're doing here in peace and sport through the lens of women who are living it every day. Our last panelist talked about going into the favelas and talking to the people in the favelas about what it's like. So what we have here are three women who are going to really tell us what it's like. But for those of you who have sisters, for those of you who have daughters or wives and women you work with in sport organizations, I hope that you take away some very important insights that we can work together, men and women together, to shape this for the next generation. So our first video that we're going to rev our engines with to get this going is by a woman by the name of Maysoon Jayusi, who could not be here with us. You might have heard her as one of the women who are part of an organization called the Speed Sisters from Palestine. And she's also a member of a representative on the International Auto Federation's Women in Motorsport Commission. So here's a glimpse of a video and from her latest movie coming up. So let's rev it up. Thank you.
من باب السخرية الهادفة أنه يمكن في كل دول العالم يزبط راليات إلا بفلسطين، أنه بدك تصطدمي بحاجز عسكري إسرائيلي كل شوي.
على مستوى العالم العربي احنا أول بنات إلنا فريق. هدفي إن أخلي كل العالم تعرف إنه في وحدة اسمها مرح زحالكة بتمثل فلسطين.
احنا بدنا تتعلم دكتورة تفتح عيادة وصير لها شيء ما بين العلوم اللي قيمتها.
احنا تأثرنا بالاحتلال، انضغطنا لوين نوصل يعني؟ نوقف حياتنا خلاص نضل قاعدين.
Yeah, isn't that cool? That's really cool. Wow. What do you think when you see that? What do you think? That's pretty cool, eh?
Waiting to get my next speeding ticket.
You're waiting to get your next speeding ticket. Let's use the microphone so we can all hear you. Yeah, that's actually pretty amazing. So as the format with the other panels, I'm going to let each of you reintroduce yourself and maybe share a little bit more about this, what we've been talking about here. So I start with you. I'll show you how to turn this on. But I'm really, is this on? Okay, yeah, just, yeah, thank you, thanks.
I would like to thank Peace and Sport very much for this invitation to have me here and to hold this session on gender equality and this journey. I guess this journey for me personally and all of us goes back quite a lot of time. As Charmaine mentioned, originally I am from Greece, so this journey for gender equality goes back to the time of ancient Greece, where Cleopatra had to disguise herself to watch her son compete at the Olympic Games as a mother, as women were not allowed to be, not even in the stadium, as spectators. Unfortunately, women's absence from the sports fields did continue for some years, and things have definitely changed, but definitely the journey is still on, and it is something that we still need to work quite hard for. It is really important for us to know how things are developing, to know how sport is not a luxury, but it is great investment for all countries, for where they are and for the future. Sport has the potential to impact and benefit multiple sectors of public and private life. It has the potential to impact the person, the family, regardless of gender. But when we're looking specifically for women, it has the potential to actually help, to make things different, as we have seen in some videos since yesterday, and as we will hear in some of the stories shared on this panel today. It takes a lot of effort for some women to have a chance, to have the opportunity to live their dream, to have an opportunity to do what they would like to do. So it is not a road paved with roses for quite a lot of women around the world. We hear examples that this happens in this country and this happens in that country. Well, I do hope that one day we will be able to have these as the rule and not just examples that we try to pick from here and there. So sport for women, for girls and women specifically, can contribute to breaking down the barriers that we have, the gender stereotypes that are still there, and or the gender roles that we have learned and we have been groomed into, and it's so difficult to even recognize certain things. We do see that sport also can create opportunities, can create a lot of different opportunities for girls and women. Unfortunately, things do not happen so easily, and things do not happen by accident. So it takes a lot of effort for those opportunities to be created, for even for some girls to be allowed to take an opportunity. It has been, I grew up at an era where still the idea, my daughter playing football, no way. The world of sport, although it is a great one, it is still excluding women in many different ways. The way sports is structured, the way sports is designed, the way sports it is run until the year of 2016 more likely perpetuates on gender inequalities than we believe it does help for gender equality. I did choose in one of my photos to take us back to the year 2000 when the Millennium Development Goals came out. And we had this, one of the goals was to empower women and to promote gender equality. And still in year 2016, quite some years later, we're still, in a way, repeating things because we have not progressed much. Yes, there is some progress, but not enough. Lately, Secretary General Ban Ki-moon mentioned that we're not going to reach the 100% potentiality of this world if we exclude 50% of the population. One big mistake that we still make, and I still see it around, is that we still focus on differences. We still focus on differences when we can't simply accept that these differences could be about complementing each other. Of course we're different. There's no question about that. But there's nothing wrong with that. It is wonderful to be different. If we were all the same, I think it would be extremely boring. It would be a very boring life to live. So these differences are wonderful, can be the starting point of great things. The different way men and women come into decision-making under pressure. What is wrong with that? There is nothing wrong with that. If we have the open mind to see that we can take these differences wherever these appear and move forward, it will be great potential. And that it will be progress. Gender equality is about progress. It is about progress of all of us working together. Gender equality is not about women, but it's about all people. Unfortunately, as I said, today I'm here to speak about gender inequality. We're not there yet. I cannot call it gender equality. The problem, or there are multiple manifestations of inequalities, and there is vast resistance to change. Both of these, some are overt and some are covert. Some we can see, and some we have been groomed so well that is very difficult to recognize. It is many times that I can get really frustrated with some female friends. I was like, why is that not okay? But we learned it since we were young. I'm like, yeah, we learned it, but things have changed. It is probably time that we can learn differently. We heard about the power of education and what important tool that can be. Well, it is something that we need. A lot of inequalities and all this focus that we put on differences, it does start with absence of education, of not knowing, of not being able to look at things from a different perspective. We always know a coin has at least 3 sides. There's not one side in everything we see. There can be multiple sides, and there can be multiple ways that we can tackle things. We do have, how much more time do we have?
We got about a minute and a half.
Okay.
Yeah, we can go
Okay.
back with the Q&A part. but
Okay,
we
that
can keep
is-
the slides
yeah,
rolling,
yeah.
please.
So there are quite a lot of examples. I'd like to stay on this. There are quite a lot of examples of, right now there have been a lot of things that, as I said, we've progressed, and we have quite a lot of documents, policy documents, resolutions. We have laws, we have quotas, we have guidelines, we have everything. When it comes to putting things down on a piece of paper, we have it. But we're lacking the most important thing. And this is one reason that I'm really happy I have the opportunity to be here today, is to say this, that what we're lacking is political commitment, political will, and political action. The paperwork is there, but the paperwork will not become reality, real life, will not become everyday praxis unless we make it happen, unless we do change some things. Recently, UNESCO worked on the revision of the Charter for Sport and Physical Education, a document that was first developed in 1978, and the words gender or women did not exist. Yes, now there are specific references for women and gender, and even different forms of exploitation that women often have to take on. However, all this documentation, without taking action and following up on it, cannot make a difference by itself. We really need to see some action from the governments, from each little country or small or big country. We can do or share to make some things different.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank
That was
you.
great. That was great. I love that PowerPoint. You going to share that with us later? That'd be great. We can get that PowerPoint. I can't wait to share that with my friends back home. Secondly, I'd like to move now to Maria Torpakai, who has her own foundation. She's a member of one of our champions for peace. And, you know, you talked about a lot of the progress that's going on and how a lot of that progress is in the westernized world in many ways. There's a lot of paper, some of that action is happening in our neck of the woods, so to speak. But if we look to where you're from, Maria, to Pakistan, and your story is one that I think is probably, reflects a great deal of some of the realities of some women in your region and other regions. So please share with us some of, what you went through as a young girl in your family and trying to get involved in sport and what you did.
Well, I'm a professional squash player from Pakistan, and the tribal regions of Pakistan is a hub to Talibanization, terrorism, and I would say it's a black hole for the superpowers too. No one could ever succeed in there. And I come from that region. It is hard for outsiders to understand that region, and I wrote this book, A Different Kind of Daughter, that explains the whole region. For me, it wasn't easy to be here. It was to be in the West, to be who I am today. My dad is very supportive. He's pro-women rights. He was the one who started change from within his family. He educated my mom. She worked really closely with all the donor agencies. She was director's education. She was a principal, and all her education is after marriage. She, continued. My dad allowed her to do that. And then my sister, she was the second project for my dad, and she is the youngest parliamentarian in Pakistan. And I was different. I was more interested in playing sports. Every child has a different quality, and I was more into sports than academics. So, and I learned differently, education. So, in order to play outside freely, and I was 4.5 at that time, I realized that, I see the difference between girls and boys, and I want to be like boys, to play outside and freely, and for that reason, I burned all my girly dresses when I was 4.5. And that was the time when my dad named me Genghis Khan. And since then, I was able to explore that region more than any other girl could ever have done, I would say. And sports, and I was trained I was trained strong, and I was trained as equal as boys, as my brothers. My dad never discouraged us. He always preferred us on equal basis. So that kind of treatment always, today I feel that I'm strong, I have the confidence, and I will always stand up for myself, no matter what the situation is. It's because I was trained strong. And usually in Pakistan, it's not only about that region, it's all over Pakistan. We have a lot of good things, but we have a lot of bad things. You would hear about acid attacks, honor killing. All the time there's discrimination when other workplaces or domestic violence, a lot of those things happening on everyday basis. And women are the victims all the time. And I would say Pakistan has a very hot market for politics and religion. And the customers, are very enthusiastic about it, and religion and politics are sold and bought every day. And it's but what happens, women are the one who suffer a lot, because that's the demand, the more the mentality is like that. They think the strength of a man is in pushing women down, discouraging them. The more control you have over women, the stronger you are. But I would say the opposite. I think the bravery of a man is in empowering women. And also, the strength of a woman is in respecting men. It's mutual. It's very equal. And I would also say that, I think, and I say, I love God, I love prophets, and whatever they say, I believe in it because I love them. And I hear that women was created from Adam's rib. But in reality, I see women as the one who give birth to men. And then I see it says history, means he story. It should be her story. In Quran, Surah Al-Imran, I read, God says, there is no man wise like a woman. Never heard that. No one tell us. Why? Because they want women to stay ignorant. They don't want them to be scholars. They don't want them to be in key positions in leadership. Because, in religion it's different, and the men's story is different. And as I said, it's all about equality. We have to understand that the more women we have in power, in key positions, in religious, women should be as scholars, religious scholars too, because Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, his wife Aisha radiallahu anha, she was also a scholar. His daughters actually treated the wounds of, or treated the wounded people. So women can be a doctor, women can be a scholar, and I think that's what we should understand. I actually ended up in sports accidentally. I was always very athletic. I always wanted to just, play local sports, running after kites, play marbles, go hunting with all the men when the kids go there in the mountains. But, and I was a very aggressive child. If I see a kid who is stronger in his village, I would go after him, challenge him in the middle of his village, and beat him. And then my dad was very worried about my aggression, and he also raised me like a boy. But in the society, it's not. It's dangerous. It's dangerous for girls. It's dangerous for boys too. Usually you hear that men would quote that it's in Islam that women should stay home. I tell you, I lived like a boy too, and I lived like a girl too. And I know both of them, their mentality. Men, that's why they say that women should stay home, because they know how uncomfortable the environment is outside, how disrespectful. That's why they keep the women stay home and cover it up under the religion. And I grew up when I was young and I was like a boy, my dad told us that it's gonna be dangerous. Don't go with someone into the shop, stay in the crowded areas, don't go into someone's house. And I'm glad that I listened to my dad always, because there were situations that I could have been sexually abused, but I get out of it. Because my dad was very close to us, and he always, he was not shy about explaining things. And that's kind of the friendly environment we had at our home. So boys are not safer either. And I see a lot of young kids who are becoming drug addicts in Pakistan. The culture is of violence, of guns. And people want to have more sons. And they tell you that, if one is killed, you have more sons. They always keep you prepared for fights. And these kind of things, it's very difficult to survive in that environment. We Um, I think that sports is the way, that can transform our societies. Today, who I am, I'm a better human being, I'm a better squash player. I heard a lot of rumors about West. They're anti-Islam, they're anti-Pakistan, and especially when I was coming to West from that hub, that tribal areas of Pakistan, I was scared that they might think I'm a terrorist. But when I came here, I was respected, I was loved, and the people of the West are like my family to me today.
And Maria, we're so respectful of your story, and we have a little bit more of it through a video. So let's show this video, and we'll have a chance for Q&A in a second.
Thank you.
So let's show the video, please. Thank you.
I come from Waziristan, the most dangerous place on earth. I disguised myself as a boy so that I can live the freedom of a man.
Girls have nothing, they just stay home, and from young age they are told that you're gonna get married. People say you're wasting time. Girls should not play sports, it's not for them.
I got this letter from this girl from Waziristan. Wow, the hell is a girl from Waziristan even playing squash for? I got her here and I wanted to help her achieve her goals.
She is #1 in Pakistan and has earned an international ranking.
Aisha is a member of National Assembly, and she's the youngest politician in Pakistan.
Many people are naming their daughters after me and Maria, and the people are realizing that the daughters, they can also contribute.
No one is the slave of anyone. You're born free, and you have to live free.
Thank you. It's a great story. Thank you. Aisha, how do you follow that? I'm sure you've heard similar stories in your work. Maybe perhaps you can, share some of the work you are doing in some of these regions for equality.
Thank you very much. I think we have heard yesterday during the opening session and today, and especially now, how sport really is a powerful tool to unite people, empower not only women, but also to actually construct somebody's life. And I think Maria's testimony was excellent in a way, because it really shows how if in your life you have somebody, in your case it was your father, who is supportive, the sport can actually be the road that you can take and develop your own person and personality and the rest of your life. So I think sport for sure has the power to make impossible nothing. And I think this we have seen in many different aspects of or discussions of this conference already. And especially now we are discussing about gender equality. And I think, their sport can make a huge, huge contribution. And I agree with my co-panelists that today, if you look at the legal aspects, or let's say the legal framework, and that is of interest, of course, to me, because I work in an intergovernmental organization, Council of Europe. I fully agree. I think basically all the legal framework necessary is there. We don't have major gap, we don't have major vacuums. But it doesn't mean that the legal rights exist, that they actually are now turned into practical rights on the ground. And I think that's where we have a huge challenge, a huge road ahead of us to see where are the priorities and where are the actions that we should be putting not only at the political level, but also in events like that. And that is, by the way, I'm so pleased and encouraged to see that you have selected the plenary session on gender equity, because I think in events like that, where you have athletes, policymakers, media, it's in a way events like that that you can actually find a way ahead. So I think in area of sport, although there has been a lot of progress, there is certainly a huge illustration of gender inequality. It can be seen in terms of women, how women are covered in media, certainly. Pay gap, we have a pay gap in all the areas of women's life, but I think especially in sport, it is impressive when you look at the figures, what female athletes gain, even if it's the same type of sport, tennis or so on and so forth, in terms of salary, in terms of bonuses. There's a huge inequality in terms of access to facilities. And I think we will be hearing about that later on as well. And there are a number of, I mean, it's not a question of money. I'm just thinking, for example, of the women football and the World Cup that took place in Canada. It's certainly not because of lack of money that they had to play on artificial turf. Certainly not. But why is it so? Why is it considered less important to provide them the same facilities as men? So there are a number of inequalities in the area of sport that are very, very flagrant. And I think one of the areas, although we can see that the women are maybe very present now in sport competitions, no matter what sport, discipline, women are there. They are bringing same amount, if not even more medals. So I think that is good. They are very active as athletes. But how is it that women are so absent in administrative bodies, where the decisions are made? Decisions are made about facilities and a number of other issues. We have a huge way to go there. And there I really plead those who are sitting in these committees, whether it's national federations or at international level, to really look into it. It gives a very, very, very bad image, I think. It's not only a question of image, but also I think it's time to ensure now that women are fully integrated in these bodies. Women are not also equally represented as coaches. They are not equally represented in media. When you talk about sport media, very seldom you see female journalists or presenters at the television. So I think these are areas that we can make a huge work still forward. I especially want to focus on media because I think media sets mindsets. It forms attitudes of the societies, and they have a huge power in making the image of women much more positive. We were discussing just during the lunch break about the way, for example, women beach volley players are presented, and the attention, how is the attention of the journalists towards these athletes? It's not very encouraging. It's not looking at their athletic performances. It's much more looking at their physical performances. And this is very annoying, I think, from a point of view, at least my personal point of view, who is trying to further gender equality on different grounds. I have a daughter, and I don't think she would like to play beach volley either, because you have to be portrayed as a sexual object in most of the cases. Of course, the advertisement business, I think if we now stick to the sport advertisement is also very sexualized. Women are portrayed as objects. It doesn't give an image of a woman as an equal athlete to a man. So I think there is a huge amount of work to be done, and this is very worrying what we see today in terms of the media and advertisement area. On the other side of the coin of this gender, let's say, stereotypes and sexism, what we are very much working at the Council of Europe, and I wanted to mention, is on violence against women. Not only is tomorrow the International Day of Violence Against Women, 25th of November, but I think it is a very, very important issue, because that it could also be one of the reasons why women may not want to be so involved in certain sports. Because there is still a lot of sexual violence, there is harassment, bullying, a number of issues that are qualified by our Council of Europe, I say our convention, Istanbul Convention, which is on violence against women. It criminalizes 9 different actions of violence against women. And I think that impedes women, and especially young girls, from playing sport. It is clear that much of this abuse happens in a close circle of trust. And in this close circle of trust, we don't only mean family. It can involve teachers, and certainly can involve also sport coaches. And this is something we have to address more, because I can see a young athlete, also a boy, it doesn't need to be a girl, who wants to do everything possible to make sure that the coach is happy with him or her, and that he maintains a place in the team. And there is many, many examples how this trust in your coach or somebody in your close circle leads into an abuse. And that is unfortunately too often still the case in the area of sport. And I think that we should address, we should speak about it. It's not a taboo. What happens also behind the closed doors of rings or gymnasiums. And I think we have to put this into public light as well. So I think those are the issues that I would really like to see progress, is how the media portrays women, and also the sad side of the violence against women and girls that is still too present. We, of course, at the Council of Europe, we are working very much on violence, but we are also working on, of course, on combating the gender stereotypes, and also ensuring that women have equal access to public and private policy-making bodies. And I think there is still, as I said before, in the area of sport, a long way to go. So perhaps I stop there with this introduction.
Thank you. There's a lot of things there. The governance piece is really interesting because things like this you can enact in organizations and put really deep in policy and make it a condition of funding. So you can do a lot of those types of things. But there's some other barriers, right? There's barriers such as, having sport more accessible, some of the practical ways, like whether it's, the dressing room or whether it's, other types of things. What kind of things do you see that we can do to really break down some of those cultural and religious barriers that sometimes may impede a woman from just going to a gym to go or feeling they can feel safe in a sport environment because it's open to them?
When we talk about touching on the issue of safety and the different forms of exploitation that sometimes stop some women from doing sports, playing sports, what we know right now is the locker rooms or the travel or the clothing are not the problems. The problem is power.
What do you mean by that?
It is the different forms of exploitation, and especially sexual exploitation. It is not about sex, but it is about power. And sexual exploitation, different forms, is the means to control the person. The minute you control someone's body, you control the person. Think about war areas and how interrogations take place. So this is another way to look at it. So to answer your question, for me, the most important part is education. To educate people on human rights, to educate people on all of us having opportunities, to educate people about the benefits, to educate people about the different opportunities that are there, and to also learn to control the issues of power. It's one of the most difficult things. Once a person has power of their hands, and the examples Maria gave about coaches or management member teams, they do hold power over athletes, over female athletes. It's the most difficult thing to say no. Because the minute you say no, you're throwing away your dream. You're throwing away possibly the Olympic dream that you've worked so hard for. That idea, say no, is not possible.
I'm going to bring up our champion for peace now. I know we have to cut a little bit short on the Q&A, and we'll get to that. I want to bring up the champion peace just to join this conversation. So please welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Aya Madani. Aya is a 3-time Olympian in modern pentathlon. Please join us here.
Right.
And she's just become a recent member of the IOC Athletes Commission. And I know being a champion for peace is something that you're very honored by. So, but I know that you have another story of some of the issues that you've gone through. You've heard these 3 women speak, and I know it really resonates with myself and all of us. And maybe just some glimpses there and a little bit about your own story as well.
First of all, I want to thank Mr. Joel for like being here and being champion of peace. So all my suffering, all of the 20 years, in the past 20 years I was suffering. So now I feel like it's worth it. So thank you, Mr. Joel, for doing this. And I will tell my story very quickly. I played the first Olympics, I was in Athens. I was 14 years old. And then in Beijing, I was ranking number 1. I have a bad horse, so I have the 8th place. And then in 2009, they have rules for swimming suits that it's not allowed to wear full swimming suit. It was disaster for me. So I have another friend. She chose to stop. I choose to complete. So I have 3 choices: to stop, or to wear out the veil, so I will not wear it anymore, or to complete. And only in the swimming competition, like we have 5 disciplines. I play modern pentathlon, so if no one knows, it's swimming, shooting, running, riding, and fencing. So during the swimming, I choose to go with the shoulders and the knee. They must be clear. So like I feel very painful. I don't want to do this, but the rules, the inequality, they forced me to do this. So I was fighting. I told them it's not fair to do this. We must play fairly, and we feel peace inside. So the athletes, they must have clear mind, clear mental, so they can do their best. So I was planning to have a medal in London. So after this disaster, I wasn't concentrating, and I qualified, but I just finished like the 16th place with this problem. So in 2016, Peace and Sport asked me to be a champion for peace. So thank you. I'm finally here. And I'm very glad and happy that I'm finally with you all, and I'm telling you my story.
You're here too. That's amazing. Isn't that amazing, ladies and gentlemen? That's a powerful story to perseverance is what that's all about. And you continue to give back. Now you've heard a lot of these comments, and let's pick up on the media one, because I know for an active athlete, a recent active athlete, that sharing your story, whether you're doing it yourself or through technology or other ways, how does sharing your story inspire other athletes like Maria and others?
I think that the media was concentrating with me. I have a lot of world champions, a lot of titles, so the media was concentrating about my problem, so I was lucky in this point. And then I have like some advices and my point of views that maybe it can help our equality. Yeah. So it's divided in 4 points. The first one is for the IF, for the International Federation. So they must to make the competition for mixed relay as our federation do. So it's between men and like 1 female and 1 male athlete. They just compete together, so all the media, they can see that they complete each other, and then they finally have a medal together. And these are the picture for the mixed relay team. And then for governments and fathers and husbands, please support and give us the chance to discover us. So we are all here. I am here because my husband and my father, he believe in me, and he feel that I have a message to deliver to all. So I'm here, and I'm glad that I am here. So please give your daughters, your wives, the position and the support to do this. The women in institutions. So maybe it sounds crazy, but this is what I believe in. I feel, or I hope, that next year we will find 1 man beside us. So he can say his point of view, and he was sitting with us, so we can complete each other. So, because now I see a lot of movies that makes fun for the women, that they are stronger and they are guiding the men in the street and something like this. So I don't like this. We are just completing each other. We support each other, so when you support us, we will support you. So it's equal. We don't want to be the boss, we just need to be equal. And last one for the athletes and the women in general. So what we believe, we have a big responsibilities on our shoulders. So we need to keep moving and keep this good spirit. So we will always, you can see us, we all have a good story. We are all here, so keep this good spirit.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great advice, and we hope that you'll certainly use the platform you have as a champion and as a member of the IOC Athletes Commission now to be able to do that, and we wish you all the best, and thank you for being our champion on this panel. I know we have maybe we have questions from the app. Let's go to that, and also from the floor, so
do the app
let's
first.
see if we have that.
Yeah.
Any questions there?
It comes from the app, the questions you're asking to the panel. Here is the first one. To what extent should we consider transgender people in international competitions?
Would you like to answer that?
Yes, I certainly think that sports should not discriminate anybody, not on basis of gender orientation or identity. So I think there is quite a lot of work already going ahead. I know that IOC is looking into the medical requirements, but it has to be possible to do it. I certainly think that a transgender person should also have this equal access to sport than any other. There should not be, sports should be for all. It should be possible for everybody.
Do you want to add to that? She wants to add to that.
I just want to add, now that you mentioned, yes, IOC is making progress, but we need to get rid of gender testing before we really believe we're making progress and having opportunity for everybody to compete.
Next question. Anybody else have anything else from
maybe
the app? Maybe
another from the app, because there were a lot coming from the app now. So we'll have another one. When do you think we will see sport federation adopt a voting system in their constitution, where you have to choose 50% women to the board?
Anybody want to answer that out there, or challenge people to do that? I know in our NOC we're certainly striving for that, and our government is striving for that as well. So you've probably seen a lot of that.
I'm eager to answer, because that was one of the issues where I think there is a huge, very, very embarrassing gap. We don't see women in these. So I think, you mentioned before the Sustainable Development Goals of UN. By 2030, we should be 50-50. So I think, it should not be only at the UN specific issues, but it should be also into sports bodies, and it is possible, possible to reach it.
I'd like to add one thing. IOC did some years ago set the goals.
Put the microphone a bit closer.
IOC did some years ago set their goals for the 10 and 20% of women's representation in managing councils of Olympic committees. There was a follow-up study after those goals, the targets. It was done with the University of Birmingham, as far as I can remember. Unfortunately, the targets were not reached at full potential. And we did see some interesting things happening in an effort to make the target, but also not spoil what we have, where there have been incidents of some federations or some sport bodies, managing councils, where they were adding numbers to their managing council so they could include some of the women to meet the goal without, though, changing the existing members. So the men were staying there intact where they were, and the managing council would become bigger so women could be added. So there have been some issues. IOC did move on that direction, at least the 10 and 20% goals. I think we're far away from the 50%, but there's always hope.
Yeah. Any questions?
Yeah, there will be questions from the room. There is one here. We start here. Okay, here one, and then.
Let's have this gentleman here first.
Yes.
Si j'ai bien compris, je pense que le thème de cette intervention, c'était l'équité. Mais l'interprète, toujours, il parlait d'égalité ou inégalité. Je ne sais pas si j'ai bien compris le sens.
If I got it right, it was this panel was talking about equity. But the translator sometimes gave us the word of equality. This is the first sentence.
Parce qu'il y a des différences entre l'équité et l'égalité.
There are differences in between equity and equality.
Alors, je ne sais pas, vous pouvez me répondre si la traduction était bonne?
Can you tell me if the translation was good? It's
like
uneasy because
why don't you take this, please? The Council of Europe, why don't you take that, Maria? Because you both work in those areas. So why don't you take this, and I'm going to leave a last question for you after, okay?
Yes, I think I certainly have tendency myself to talk about gender equality because I think we use this term more internationally, in not only in the documents but also in our discussions. But for me personally, I don't see the difference between gender equity and equality. I think in the end, they are aiming at the same purpose.
We have a question.
Some more? Yeah, one question
here.
here, one question here, and then we come back here. Please, the microphone. S'il vous plaît, le micro. Here, in the middle.
Thanks. I absolutely share your opinion about gender equity in sport, but the biggest problem that I see there is that in sport we always focus on performance and on maximum performance. We always wanted to see the best and the fastest. So I just wonder, what is your opinion about how can we find a solution that women's sport also is as interesting or is shown as interesting as men's sport, although they are a woman, the best woman may never be that fast as the best man.
It's too bad we didn't have the race car
Yeah, that's
driver
true.
here to talk
That's
to
true.
us. But go ahead, Aya.
You're right, sure.
As I understand, so I think the fastest way is through education. So when we go to the schools and tell them that we have these sports, like now it's like 35 or 36 games in the Olympics, so, and we have the both gender, so when we just tell them that you have the education, you can join this, and we tell them the path that they should go, so it will be the fastest way, through education.
Yeah, it's difficult to compare anyway, so I think this is the best way. Don't do
I
this.
think also athletes telling their stories more, the
course.
inspiration more, the stories we heard of Maria and others. Again, we have all the paperwork in the world. It's time for action, you know. But it's time for women. We have to also do it together as much as we can, as we're trying to, and push together, continue on the journey, as you said in the beginning. This is a journey. It's not there yet, but please.
Can I just continue on that, because I think the question really put accent on a problem we have, and that's what I mean about media. Why is it thought that men, 100 meters, for example, is more impressive than, for example, achievement that has been made by my co-panelist here? Or what about those in Paralympics?
Yeah.
I think if you look at the investment, things that they make without having the parts of the bodies that we have, it's far more impressive than something that we see. But that's the way media present things, and that's what we have to change.
We have to change that. Yes,
one of the sponsors here is a women's app. I don't know if they're here. There's a women's media company who is here, and you're president of the Women's Foundation. So those kind of organizations are telling those stories, and we just have to keep pushing on that. I think we have time for one more question.
Yeah, one more question. There were one more here.
I think there's.
We have this gentleman. Yes,
okay.
Please.
Or maybe two more.
Try another one. Yes.
Everybody's hands going up now.
Yeah.
It's great.
My question goes to Maria. I personally share your views on the fact that media have a huge responsibility in the way they portray women's sports, and that there is certainly a lack of coverage. But if you take into account the fact, for example, that in football only 94% of advertisers and sponsors' money go to male sports, there's no way media can make it. So to what extent are you ready to take actions to help media, especially commercial media, achieve a better representation of women in sports?
I do fully agree with you that money makes a big difference there. We are trying to, step by step at the Council of Europe, to look into the gender in aspect of sport. We have recommendation that it's almost 2 years old now, and we are especially putting accent also on the funding, where the funding goes. It's very difficult, of course, and I don't think it's something that anybody wants to regulate, but I see myself that a lot of the private sector is actually increasingly interested also in investing in women. It might be because many of them now have these corporate responsibility sectors, so they have to look good as if they are advancing gender, but I think there is a lot of goodwill to do it. And that's where you need role models, athletes, female athletes, to make this interest grow as well. And I think these actually events or discussions or role models that they are are much more efficient than years of meetings that we can organize at the Council of Europe at the level of experts.
Aya has a word, and then we're going to close up.
We have two more, quickly.
Okay, to this.
Okay, quickly, just I can. Is it working? So,
Yes,
yeah.
it's working. Go
So
ahead.
easily, like in pentathlon, we change a lot the rules to be more interesting for the fans, for the audience, for the media. So I think if every international federation, if he just take this case, it will be faster. So they can change, like for football men, they must to figure out from the sports consulting how they can make the women more interesting for the fans. So there can be funds, so it will be more famous.
Thank you. Sir? Yes.
Thank you. Je me présente, donc je suis Ahmed Jabri, le secrétaire d'État chargé des sports en Tunisie. C'est juste un petit rajout par rapport à ce que dit notre prix Nobel, M. Absatar Moussa, par rapport à ce qu'a connu la Tunisie juste après la révolution de janvier 2011. C'est vrai que la participation tunisienne, de la femme tunisienne, c'est de 24%, mais même après tous les problèmes que nous avons eus, on a toujours eu des champions, et même des champions olympiques et des champions du monde, à l'instar de notre championne, Madame Habiba Ghribi, qui est toujours là. Et deux autres indicateurs qui ne sont pas des moindres, à mon avis, c'est que durant les Jeux olympiques de Rio, sur 3 médailles que la Tunisie a eues, et ça c'est un chiffre assez important, 2 étaient des femmes, et des femmes qui ont eu des médailles en escrime et en lutte, et c'était les premières médailles du monde arabe et les premières médailles en Afrique. Et en plus, durant les Jeux paralympiques, puisqu'on parle d'équité et de Jeux paralympiques aussi, sur les 19 médailles tunisiennes, 7 en or, 6 en argent et 6 en bronze, 11 étaient récoltées par la femme tunisienne. 5 en or, 4 en argent et 2 en bronze. Ceci pour dire que l'apport de la femme tunisienne dans la société civile a toujours été très important en Tunisie. Donc, et l'apport, comme a dit Madame Maria, c'est la femme qui procrée, qui met au monde, mais elle ne peut pas le faire juste pour plaisanter, elle ne peut pas le faire toute seule. Il faut qu'il y ait un homme dedans et avec. Donc, en Tunisie, l'homme et la femme marchent ensemble pour une vraie équité et une vraie démocratie. Merci.
Merci. It was a statement. You got it?
Can you paraphrase for those of us who...
You want a summary? You want me to summarize? I had the states for the Tunisian government. They wanted to say that women in Tunisia has been also, they said 20% are doing sports, but not only, but at the last games there were 3 medals. 2 were made by the women team, and Habiba Ghribi is here, is representing just one of them. And then also among the 19 Paralympic medals that they had in Tunisia, 11 were made by the women. So that's why women are also performing in Tunisia, showing that the women in our country is also performing. But as you said earlier, women cannot have babies alone. So they have to work together with the men, and that's why we have an equity in our country.
Thank you for sharing
if you
that
want,
with
if you
us,
want to
Mr. from
react,
Tunisia.
I see you going down with your head. If you want to react, because we are here to say something.
No, she's
No,
good.
you don't.
She's good. Thank
One
you.
more question. We have one more lady. Yes, behind, and that's it. No.
Okay.
I want people to have the floor. So.
I actually work for the Professional Squash Association. We're honored to have Maria as one of our players, and we're here to support her. And one of the questions that I constantly struggle with is when we're the governing body for both male and female for squash in the world. When we're trying to put together women's events, we have that argument, like Djokovic said before. How do you, when they say male events attract more revenue and attract more spectators, how can we argue against that to promote equal pay? So if you can give us any advice on how we can keep pushing for that.
The way is pretty long. This is one way. Who wants to answer to that? Equity in being paid because of the fact that some events are more interested by men's competition than women's competition?
I think we have to keep doing what we're doing. Keep doing what we're doing. I think of an example in my own country. We used to have a basketball team called Edmonton Grads, way back in the 30s, 40s. I don't know if you heard of them. They would sell out the stadium. right? Sell out the stadium back in the 30s and 40s. You've probably heard of this group. It was incredible. So I think that women's sports are very powerful. I think they need to be measured on their own merit. I think we compare it too much, men's sports, women's sports is powerful. These stories that you've heard today are powerful. And we have technological tools to be able to share that in such a strong way that we have never had before. So, we just can't give up on that. I think we have to keep having these kinds of conferences, having these kinds of dialogues, and there are some governance things that people are doing, work with them. And my friend Donna Deverona, many of you respect her very much, and she was part of Title IX in the States, trying to make sport more accessible for women. She always says this phrase, which I try to live as much as I can: keep the ladder up for other women. So let's keep the ladder up for other women to be able to be on top as well, and to do as much as we can for the younger generation. And with that, I'm going to ask the youngest person here with us to say maybe some final words to your young generation. What would you say as a motivational words to give back to young women of today?
Well, for men, I would say to support women as much as they can. They have sisters, they have daughters, they have mothers and wives, and it's important because the strong the women they have, the better the world is for them and for the next generations. And also, I would say for the girls, especially in our regions who are, oppressed, a lot of girls. But then I would say to them that life comes once, and you cannot live it on someone else's orders. You have to understand your abilities, your qualities, and your life is a gift from God, and you have to unlearn what you have learned, what you have taught, and rediscover yourself and stand up for yourself.
I love that. That's a great way to end. And I want to thank
Shami,
you.
just it answers to one question, but I know maybe you want to react to this one, because this question is coming back on the app. Is empowering women is good for peace?
I was going to end exactly on that and how important it is for peace. And the work that we are doing, of course, with Peace and Sport, it's very equal. We have young men, we have young women who we are working with. And it's so great to be up here with these pioneers as well. Some of the women who've developed the policy, developed the foundation so that young women like yourselves now can continue to take that on. It is a journey. And I know part of that journey through Peace and Sport is one which we are fully committed to gender equity in all the programs that we do. That's a mark of what we do. So thank you, Mr. President, for that opportunity to gather us here, and we're strengthened by that. And your final words, I think, just summarize everything. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you for your work. Good luck with the IOC Athletes Commission. I know you'll do great work there and follow in the steps of your great legend, Rania Alwani, as well. So thank you all. Thank you for my
thank you, Charmaine.
Q&A assistant.
I don't want to take the floor. You do it so well. No, it's
and we'll see you later at the gala.
We recall, and you know that on
you.
this.
Merci beaucoup.
So we have now workshops, ladies and gentlemen, and please, there is a diplomatic time, very important. It will be set up in 40 minutes. Around 30 to 40 minutes, so around 4:15. So please be with us. It's just outside here. So please, it's an important moment of diplomacy here in Taekwondo. Thank you very much.
Take a photo. Joel, come up with us for the photo, Joel, please.
And then later on, after the workshops, we will have, of course, later the awards here in that room. So be with us and keep voting and keep walking, also because you have your podometer. Thank you.
It's fun.
And we have to go for mixed sports everywhere. Mixed sports everywhere. This is what we need.
Thanks, guys.
Camilo,